Okay, good afternoon. We're already starting this session. I see people are still joining into the webinar, so we'll leave a few seconds more for people to join in today, in this afternoon, and then we'll start with today's webinar. So just a few, perhaps 1 minute more, and then we'll start with the session of today. Okay, I believe it's time, so let's start the webinar. So first of all, good afternoon. Thank you very much for attending today's 5th webinar from the InterConnect project. And today we have a wide set of speakers to talk about innovation and also to explain to us here all how do we manage innovation across Europe, also within the projects, and most of all, how do we orchestrate innovation? In our particular case for InterConnect is one very dear topic to us, because being part of Innovation Action, we do need to set the pace on the innovative developments that we have in the project and finding ways to communicate these developments and the innovation that overall is being produced in the project to a wider audience, not only for technical personnel, but also for the commission itself. So this is also something that is embedded within the project. And overall also to the general audience. So whichever will be the final users of the technology and the systems that we're developing in the project, this is also part of how we manage the innovation and how we take it to those that are the users of the innovation itself. So today, as you'll see, we have 4 speakers to talk about this. We'll have Frank, Virág, Maurits, and Arnor to talk about innovation. So very briefly to introduce each one of them, we have here the bios. So Frank Berkers from TNO is a senior scientist that is leading this business analysis side, which is responsible for the part of modeling and the network analysis. Is also one of the founders of the TNO strategic initiative Orchestrating Innovation, which basically trains TNO leaders of on the large open societal impact within the innovation hubs. And it has like an extensive experience in project initiatives and also in making sure that innovation is brought into the spotlight. He's currently pursuing a PhD degree in strategic decision making for business models. We also will be having Virág Szijjártó. I'm sorry if I didn't pronounce your name right, but Virág is also from TNO side as a consultant on strategic business analysis in TNO, holding a master's in innovation management from the Erasmus University, the Rotterdam School of Management. She's also focused on this side of innovation, but more specifically on the multi-stakeholder projects with regards to digitalization and ICT framework. So to deal with the challenges regarding large-scale data sharing, initiatives, and business models for solutions in developing countries. So also today with us here, we'll have Maurits Butter from TNO. So as having been graduated from the Faculty of Chemical Engineering in TU Delft, he joined TNO as Senior Advisor in Innovation Policy, and is also pretty much engaged and experienced in this technology innovation policy framework. So he was a research leader for TNO Research Program Renewal of Innovation, and is now an expert on the field of connecting forward-looking information and policy making. Also very glad to have him with us today. And final, last but not least, as they say, we have Arnor Van Leemputten from Dien, who is also participating in the project. He has a master's degree in electronics and ICT engineering, and he has been also specialized in internet connectivity and computing. Within Dien, he is responsible for development and implementation of the technical solution. He's leading work package 6 with the preparation of the pilot, and he has experience in energy-related projects in the areas of storage, vehicle to grid, energy convenience, smart grids, and so forth. So also dealing with software. He's also within Thinky, combined with the position in University of Leuven, so is also from a research-based ground. So thank you very much to all of us here and for participating. I hope that you will have a fruitful discussion. Just for expedite the discussion between everyone, we'll have a Q&A available for the participants here. So feel free to drop your questions in the Q&A, and in the team we'll have an opportunity also to interact with the audience. So passing on the floor to Frank to lead the next presentation, and thanking all of the speakers here today, and wishing you all a very fruitful webinar. Thank you. The floor is yours.
Thank you, David, for the nice introduction. Let me see. Just to check, my screen sufficiently visible? I hope so. Just to introduce.
It is. Go ahead.
Thank you. So just to introduce you a little bit on the agenda, we have 4 people already introduced. I'll kick off with introducing Orchestrating Innovation. What is it and where did it come from? Then I'll talk with my colleague Maurits Butter on networks of digital innovation hubs. So about the distribution of innovations. Then my colleague Virág will introduce you to the value group approach, which we apply in the InterConnect project. And she will also have an interview with Arnor Van Leemputten of Thinky about the experiences with that approach. And that will wrap up this, this webinar. So let's get to it. Next slide. Yes. So in the 13 years I've been working for TNO, for the Strategic Business Analysis Department, I have been mainly looking at the business perspective on many technological-driven innovations. And in my view, the key challenge that keeps coming back is actually to address societal challenges and specific ambitions using innovation. That may sound simpler than it seems. In the past, we really used to think that technical superiority would automatically sell the innovation and achieve substantial scale and address that societal challenge. However, more recent insights on innovation and marketing science indicate that societal and industrial participation and understanding usage and behavior is really needed to spur adoption on higher levels as a precursor to innovation diffusion at scale. And what I've been observing in and around the work that TNO is doing, I saw many living labs, field labs, open innovation, ecosystem, clusters, innovation hubs, joint research programs, what have you, pop up in practice. And somewhere, it must be 2013, 2014, some colleagues asked me, because I'm trained in business modeling, Frank, what is the business model of our innovation center? Can you help us set that up? And I observed that so many organizations were involved in these kind of initiatives. So I asked myself the question, how to professionalize this development, and what is the business model of such a, let's call it innovation hub, as a superset of all these forms that we've been seeing in practice. So today we will discuss the complex business of supporting innovation and how it can be organized and run as a virtual innovation factory. So I have 2 key messages. One is that supportive innovation requires a professional, business-like organization. And the second is that this model is basically a reorganization of the innovation landscape in Europe. But first, how did this evolve over time? For me, the journey really started more explicitly when I was being asked to work on the business model for the Voltagem Innovation Center. Voltagem is about electrification of the chemical industry. So it's about equipment, it's about application in the chemical industry, and it's also about linking with, of course, renewable energy provision and how these three industries need to collaborate and move towards very high level of adoption. So this is where my journey started, and I started studying different innovation centers and initiatives, existing, external to TNO, abroad, on all continents basically. On the screen, you see some of the initiatives that we supported. For instance, the Tech Delta initiative. It's about technological collaboration between startups and corporate companies. The Smiths initiative is about Industry 4.0, Techruption. It's about administrative innovations like blockchain and other service provisions. But also Soliance, which is working on solar energy. So really different domains, different technologies, and also different ambitions, but they have something in common, and that is this innovation center, which is at the core of the ecosystem spurring this innovation. So our journey continued, and we developed a booklet with hands-on templates for instance, how to do a roadmap, how to build a business model for an innovation, how to assess the functioning of your innovation team, how to set up governance. So we started off with this booklet, and there was some interest for that, but we needed to go a little bit further. And we started off with an internal course called Orchestrating Innovation. And we taught 3 groups of around 15 senior orchestrators how to do this setting up and managing of innovation hubs. Now, currently, they are comprised in a community, so they do intervision every now and then to learn from each other cases. So, and these cases, again, are from different industries with different levels of maturity. But nevertheless, this community finds that really valuable to do so. And early this year, we started an executive education program with the Erasmus Center for Entrepreneurship here in Rotterdam. And already the second issue is fully booked, and that will start after summer. Alongside this, say, TNO development, together with colleagues across Europe, the concept of digital innovation hub was also evolving. So building forward on the multiple values of that in manufacturing industry, yeah, we saw coming up the concept of digital innovation hub as a one-stop shop in different application domains, such as artificial intelligence, manufacturing, agriculture, and logistics. And recently also the concept of EDI, European Digital Innovation Hub, entered the scene. My colleague Maurits will explain a little bit more about that in a few minutes. So what is now this orchestrating innovation, and what is an innovation hub? Let's dive into that. So what I'll present is, say, our reference model for the innovation hub, which we actually use to design and evaluate innovation hubs and to advance them a little bit. So it's our way of working. So orchestrating innovation is establishing a situation in which the relevant parties are willing to continuously invest in realizing one or more innovations to achieve a societal objective. And the innovation hubs are then the one-stop shops that help companies to become more competitive by applying novel digital technologies. Okay, so much for definitions. Basically, this is about the business of supporting innovation. So how does this work? You can imagine two or more organizations getting together and setting up a new organization with the aim to establish a flow of innovations that together address a societal challenge. So what we see here is identification of societal challenges, defining your ambition, and defining also what type of innovation is to address these societal challenges. In the middle, between, say, the innovation and reaching a solution to societal challenges, of course, there's the need to gain societal and industrial participation, adoption, the right usage. So this is in scope if you want to reach impact. Now, how can you organize that? What do you need to organize for that? First of all, what you see on the screen is what we see as the main working ingredients of such an innovation hub. We will start on the left, lab facilities. Okay, technology development, testing, test before invest is really important. So you need lab facilities in different stages, in different sizes, from industrial scale, but also down to bench scale. It can be living labs. If the innovation needs to be embedded in society, you need a living lab, or a field lab if it's about industry. So that can take on different forms. Can also be virtual if it's about software development. But you need lab facilities and you need to coordinate these. Of course, you also need people with some expertise. So to actually evolve the technology and to help with the test and etc. Third ingredient is IP. If you want to create innovations, you need to also to have access to background IP, and of course you will be developing new IP, and you need to take proper care of that, because that's in some industries it's really important to be secure on. You will need a roadmap, a plan, milestones, how to advance your portfolio of innovations. And of course, you will also need some funding to be able to direct the activities in the labs and the people with the expertise in view of the roadmap. I skipped the element of the ecosystem. Of course, the ecosystem, it's very important, but what is an ecosystem? Well, basically it is for the innovation hub, it's about the supply and demand for knowledge and innovation support. So this organization that we're looking at also has strong relationships with competence centers, with universities, with research and technology organizations, with different sorts of industry, small and medium enterprises, corporates, sometimes equipment developers, applying industry. You will have relationships with clusters, networks, industry associations. Also, sometimes real estate agents, because you want to house the innovation center somewhere, probably. Educational institutes, because you need to train the personnel. Regional development agencies, looking for developing jobs and entrepreneurship in the region. National and regional governments, accelerators and incubators that help to create business around the innovations. So why do you need to have relationship with all of these type of actors? That is because innovation functions are scattered over the country and over all of Europe and maybe even beyond. And it's helpful if one organization clusters all of these actors and what they have to offer to serve those that are actually doing innovation. So to smoothen the process of innovation from the early stages towards the full impact scale. This is why the ecosystem ingredient is so really important. So then if you are working with multiple organizations in setting up such a business-like organization, you will have founders with a specific stake in this organization. And there will be other stakeholders like governments helping you to create this this organization. And of course, that will require some level of alliance governance in order to run this organization. All fair and square. If you want to make it like a business-like organization, then there are some more steps to be taken. And yeah, you could consider yourself a real business, so you will need a business model. But what we have seen so far is that innovation hubs do change over time. So life cycle management, how to evolve the portfolio of innovations, how to attract new type of customers and partners is really important. So the life cycle perspective. On the left side, we see communication, branding, and market development as, you know, you want to grow the portfolio of innovations that you are doing. So you need to brand yourself, make it visible, and gaining the right presence. The thing I want to talk about is in a minute is also that all these items here, the working ingredients, are basically the core of providing innovation services. And I will talk about that in just a minute. But before we do so, we would like to have a view on the poll, the first poll. Eunice, can you launch the first poll, please? So the first poll we have in this Innovation Hub context: which of the following do you find the most challenging? The first one, the governance of an Innovation Hub, or getting funding and getting revenues for the Innovation Hub, attracting partners, or achieving impact. May I have your votes, please? Which of the following do you find the most challenging? Achieving impact. Achieving impact is the winner of the poll. Yeah, I guess this is really true, huh? Because you have to do all of this and still cannot control everything that's on the way to achieving impact. You will be relying on uptake, on cultural aspects, etc. But there is a lot you can do about achieving impact, but you cannot never guarantee it. Thank you for your votes. So the last bit of my presentation before we start talking with Maurits, I wanted to show you the portfolio of services that we have identified for innovation hubs, and they come in four main blocks. First, of course, is the technology block. It's about developing technology. It's about testing and scaling up technology. I think most of you are quite familiar with this level of services. Less known, but also quite in view already, is the business services. Huh? So how to create business from these technological innovations by incubator and accelerator support, organizing access to finance for the innovators, developing new projects, and the third block of innovation services is not so known, but very, very important. And this is the ecosystem innovation services. This is really about building a community. So creating awareness and engagement with all of the stakeholders we just discussed before. It's about building the strategy for the Innovation Hub. It's about learning from each other. How is this ecosystem working? And it's also about branding and representing the joint initiative at different stakeholders. The fourth block is, of course, skills, training, and education. Because in the end, when the innovation wants to succeed, you will need the right human capital to make those innovations work. For all of these services, companies and other organizations will be interested in different ways. So there is a difference in appeal from comparing startups and SMEs and corporates and also governments. but you have to really tune your revenue models based on this interest. We have also developed a maturity model that can help you advance through the different, say, stages of professionalism on these services. So in summary, we have shown you that the support of innovation is an actual professional business. It requires organization of all relevant innovation functions and organizations in your ecosystem. And together they deliver the innovation services that are required to establish a smooth flow of innovations that together address a societal challenge. So why is this a reorganization of the innovation landscape? Again, all these innovation functions are quite scattered over Europe and in our countries. And there's somebody that needs to bundle them, make them available in a one-stop shop. So it's taking stock of what's out there and providing it as a package. How is this relevant to interconnect smart homes, buildings, and grids? I think in two ways. For all innovations, specifically those in the pilots of InterConnect, InterConnect is just one of the projects in which this technology, in which this innovation is being progressed. So all of these innovations themselves will still need this smooth flow towards impact. So question to you is, do you have an innovation hub nearby that can help you advance your innovations? And secondly, InterConnect itself needs to organize and align all these innovation functions for its portfolio of innovations. So, and this is exactly what Virág will explain. But first, I'd like to talk to my colleague, Maurits Butter. Maurits, can you
yes, I can.
yourself? Hi, Maurits. I've just talked about orchestrating innovation and the blueprint for an innovation hub. The InterConnect project is not a physical innovation hub, but a large-scale and distributed project. Among a lot of other things, Maurits, you have been working on networks of digital innovation hubs. After briefly introducing yourself, could you explain us what these networks are and why Europe can benefit from such networks?
Yes, thank you, Frank, for this invitation. I always think it's wonderful to talk at these seminars. I do see that I need to change my picture. It's quite like my background, of course, but it's still the picture is I think should be changed with a newer one. So you stated, or David stated, that I was trained as a chemical engineer and that's my profession by training, but I can tell you all that I needed help with my daughter to finalize her chemistry courses during high school. I don't have them anymore, so it's too long ago. But it did give me the opportunity to work in the beginning of my career for a consultancy firm. And I spent 5 years there working, helping SMEs to come up with innovation. I think that's a very core element. I took that to the Ministry of Environment after 5 years, and I also spent 5 years there working on transition policy. And that's also very important for orchestrating innovation. So then, now I almost worked for 25 years for TNO. First part, it was on foresight, but since 2012, I entered into the game of public-private partnerships. I did a study for the Ministry of DG GROW, so Ministry of Economic Affairs of the Commission, researching how the government can support SMEs to conquer the valley of death. One thing that I want to show you there is one of the observations I had while visiting the state of Columbus. And there's a wonderful anecdote that shows a lot about what Digital Innovation Hub and what networks are all about. I visited them, asking them, Ohio Tech, how they organize helping SMEs and research institutes to come together. so I had a discussion, and at a certain moment, I was asked to join another group, which was in the building, and they were from another organization, and there was a group of, let's say, 5 to 10 people answering all my questions. What that proved to me, and what is very important here, is that you need to have open channels of communication with all innovation partners in a region. And that's what they did. So I learned a lot from that in that project. In 2015, I brought it to DG Connect, and we developed the concept of smart shared facilities for pilot production, but the Commission rephrased it to digital innovation hubs, where, as you said, Frank, the core of technology was surrounded by business, and again surrounded by the ecosystem development, which is critical to the sustainability, I think, of digital innovation hubs. I did a lot of mentoring there at the first part of that. Then I took, together with the Commission, or the Commission evolved it into the European Digital Innovation Hubs that are out there today, because they saw, and that's also a critical part of my message, they saw that if you have regions and you have different kinds of digital innovation hubs, you need to get together and you need to work together. It is about creating economies of scale. Because if one digital innovation hub needs to collaborate on a European level, it's not in their interest, because there are too much investments needed to enter into the European game. That's why the EDIs are there, to enable the regional collaboration and to make the connection to other regions. And that's a critical thing that we entered into the thinking about digital innovation hubs in the last years. So at this moment, I'm the scientific coordinator of the Dien project, which is ending in October, unfortunately, but I'm also involved in the Bowie project. And the Bowie project, one of the elements there, and that's also important here, is about establishing interregional innovation corridors, because those EDIs need to connect to each other. Then you can use each other's capacities and capabilities on a European level and get better. How to develop those corridors? It's a critical thing. Usually it's just ad hoc. One EDI or one innovation hub or one whatever you call them, it needs to work together with another one. But usually it's just phoning them. We need to evolve this in a more structural level. You need to look at governance, what you already mentioned. We need to look at value. We need to look at funding for those elements. We need to look at culture, and we need to look how to make that operational. We're doing that in the Bowie project. And then for this project here, it's also important that we are in the DNet project very much looking at post-project sustainability of European networks. And there's one message, and then I'll finalize. I think it's very important to make a distinction between the network activities and the digital innovation hub activities. You've shown the digital innovation activities.
Yeah.
To make sure that those activities can be brought to other regions, you need to have the networks. But those networks do other things, and you need to think about that. So that's it.
In the, say, regional level, the digital innovation hub or the innovation hub wants to offer something complete for those who make use of the services. But say on the back end, in the backbone, there will be complementarity between hubs in these corridors or networks.
Yes, okay. But you also, so what you do, and we introduced the lighthouse element in the EDIs. What you need to do is you need to focus on specific specialties in the region, so it can lighthouse to the rest of Europe. Look, I'm here. This is who I am. This is my USP. It's a critical thing to create interregional collaboration, because if everyone can do everything, no one will look for interregional collaboration or European collaborations. And so that's
can also help in diffusion of knowledge and diffusion of innovation.
Yes, yes.
What is the next big challenge in your view that the European innovation landscape is facing? And are you or others already working on that? Or is
it is to create those interregional innovation corridors. Because as I said, it's very easy to just have the phone number of someone, but it's very complex to organize the collaboration between two regions on a higher level. And I think it's critical to do that because it shows the added value of Europe. And if you do not do that, but just have a scattered landscape of just a telephone book with some people, then the project Europe as such, that we are all together in the same game, will be failing because we do not use each other's capacities and capabilities, and there's no added value. 1 + 1 is 1.5 instead of 3.
Okay, thank you.
That's the change.
Maurits, I have a 20 million euro question for you. Can you spare some advice to the InterConnect as a project on how to advance its innovation portfolio towards pan-European impact at substantial scale?
Yeah, so this is all about what I just said. Make a difference between your members, the ones that are offering the services to their regional customers, and between the things that you as a network do, because those services need to enable the other ones to make use of themselves, of each other's capacities. But they will not seek that collaboration themselves easily because they're funded by regions and national authorities and regional stakeholders. And Europe is there to make sure that in a region, the highest quality of services can be found in other regions. And that's what the InterConnect and those European networks are about. But you need to focus on that and connect the services that you want to deliver to those digital innovation hubs, not SMEs, to how you can be paid for that. And that critical point of getting paid for your value creation, that's the thing that you should focus on. We can help you with that. I think, Frank, you also know a bit about that, but that's the crucial $1 million question. How do you do that?
Thank you, Maurits. I really love to continue this talk, but we'll have to do that some other time because we have prepared some more things to share. I looked at the Q&A. Somebody asked for links to the projects of the projects that you just mentioned, Maurits. Could you enter those in as an answer?
We'll do that. Yes.
Then I'd like to hand over to my colleague Virág. There she is.
Yes, hello. Thanks, Frank. One moment, I will share my screen so everybody can continue to see the presentation.
Yes, great.
Yeah, it works. Perfect. All right, so I will tell you a bit about the value group approach, which is basically how we're implementing the orchestrating innovation way of thinking, which Frank explained in the beginning, in the InterConnect project. So I will explain a bit what it is and how it works, what's the philosophy behind it, and why this can be beneficial. Yes, I will talk about the value group in the context of the InterConnect project. So we know that InterConnect is a very large and complex project with many different partners. It's all over Europe. We need many different collaborations and technologies. And yeah, it's scattered across Europe, but you can still see it as an innovation hub, but then spread out. So you can use the same framework that Frank explained before to see the project. And what's happening in this project? We're all working hard. We're making sure we make the deadlines, creating many deliverables and results that we talked about in the beginning we wanted to reach. But it is quite hard to keep an overview of what is happening and to check whether we're actually still going into the right direction, whether we're going into the direction of reaching the impact which we wanted to reach from the beginning onwards. And to make sure to help with that a little bit is why we created the value group, which is a group which really focuses on the impact and on the value creation of the project. So what is this value group exactly? It's basically a subgroup of people who are already member of the project, people who are motivated and who would like to think about the project in this way. Yeah, and the purpose of this value group is to really make sense of external but also internal developments on the project and to see how the project is doing and how we can respond to these developments, because the project is long, it's 4 years. Yeah, many things can change and we have to adjust so that we will still reach the intended impact. So it's very important that it's not just monitoring what is happening, but more focusing on how is it really going, and yeah, are we going into direction? So not just did we reach these milestones and did we deliver something, but are we creating something together? So it's really not focused on compliance, but more on the impact. And together with the people in this value group, we take a critical approach. So we look at things that we think might not be going well, but we take also a constructive view to think about how we could solve those. And the point is to also zoom out and look longer term and the project as a whole, not just on sub elements, how it's going. Yeah, and the value group is basically 2 steps. So first, people look individually at how it's going in different parts, and then together in a group discussion with the whole value group, we make sense of what we have seen, what we've sensed around, and see how we can steer into the right direction. Yeah, and with all the members of the value group, we try to cover the project as a whole by following the elements of this framework, which you can see on the left. And I will explain a bit more about that here on the next slide. So yeah, I just explained a bit what the value group is and the ideas behind it. And here I can tell you a bit more about what it looks like in practice. So we have divided the project, let's say, into smaller parts based on the framework, which we then call lots of the value group. And the point is that for each member in the value group, or actually for every lot, there's someone who's responsible for that one, so that they keep an eye out for the developments which are related to that topic. So, for example, the stakeholders and the ecosystem is one part, one lot, where then one member is keeping an eye out. Then there's, for example, the IP, which somebody makes sure to see what's happening. Same for governance, business model, the pilot testing and validation, and the ambition and impact. This way, there's the different areas, and all together we have an overview of the project as a whole. A simplified one, of course, but still we have an idea about everything. Yeah, and then let's say we have someone who's responsible for the ambition or impact part. Then we ask that person to indicate how it is going. So you can say green, everything is going well. Yellow, it's going a bit medium, or red. Yeah, things are really not going into the direction where we should be going. And then we asked this member to say why they indicate this color, what is going well, what should be improved and how, and if they see any external developments which we should really act on within the project. And yeah, we asked this to everyone. So for all the lots, in the end, we will have an overview about how it's going. And after that, we can discuss together what we sensed, what our view is on how it's going. Yeah, and see what we can improve. And yeah, I would put on the second poll question, which we have for you. Yeah, so yeah, which of the lots do you think would be most important to discuss in such a setting? I would say actually most interesting, because they're all important. So I'm curious what you think. Please take a vote. Yeah, and while you're voting, we can see it, the business model, and the stakeholder ecosystem. Indeed, those are challenging parts, and good that we're keeping an eye on that in the value group as well. And I wanted to say that the value of this value group, it's really that we're underpinning the problems and the actions that we can take on those. And you need people who dare to speak up in that way and who dare to share the doubts. So that's important with who you choose to be in it. And for the people who are participating, it's really not for themselves. It's not for us, people organizing the value group, but it's really for the sake of the project as a whole, and that we will keep going towards the impact which we envisioned. And what you can see as benefits of this approach is that risks and critical points will be brought up. We see that it's also an initiative to collaborate a bit more and to share the knowledge about what we see within the project. And what I mentioned, it's really the value creation will become central. This approach, we're testing it here, still learning a lot how it works, but I think it's something that can be applicable in other settings and other projects as well, even if they're quite different than the InterConnect project. So that's about the value group. And now I would like to invite Arnor for a little talk about the value group, because he's part of it as well.
Yes, thank you, Virág.
Could you first start with introducing yourself shortly?
Yes, so David already did it quite well in the beginning. So I have a bit more technical background. In this project, I'm Work Package 6 leader also. Work Package 6 is all about preparing and monitoring of the different pilots. So it's actually a supporting work package, which is trying to be a top view overview of all the different pilots together in the 7 countries. And I'm also the Belgian pilot leader for this project. So, and that's also my role in the value group, was to be more on the pilot and validation side a lot, I think, for the Belgian pilot.
Indeed, yes. And could you share a bit what your experience was so far, or what your observations were with the value?
For sure. So I think it was now almost 1 year ago that we had the startup, I guess, of the value group in the first update, which was very much in the beginning of the project. And I think, well, that's the way it always works with templates and with things. It's a very nice way of collecting information, but it's more important how you fill it in than what the template looks like. And also, especially in this case, in an innovation setting, that it might change as well. And I think the people guiding it, or in this case, Virág and Frank, are very important. And I think you're both also very suited to do it. So it's a nice way to have this kind of, I saw on your slide, the zoom out view. I think that's a very nice summary of people usually occupied in the project with their own thing, especially in projects of this size, have again something to zoom out and then take a more focused view on innovation. It's very nice.
Yeah, good to hear. And you mentioned that you're involved in other similar projects. That have you seen this kind of approach somewhere else, or can you compare it to how the situation was there?
Yeah, so I think here we are involved in a lot of innovation projects, and we usually try to take like also this multidisciplinary view on it, so not only the technical view but also social and regulation view. And what you usually see in those kind of projects is, especially towards the end, and the deadlines get a bit stricter, the deliverables get a bit harder to fill in. That maybe, especially with COVID, we saw also that the flow of the project gets a bit interrupted, that it's really easy to start focusing on what you have to deliver and forgetting a bit the innovation part, forgetting a bit the zooming out. And I think that a way of working just like this, and it can be this way, or it could be another, it's very nice to have it from the beginning, but especially towards the end, I think it will create even more value for the project, especially one of this size. So I think that's quite a good summary of what is in the different projects.
Yeah, and yeah, is there any situation where you think this can work better or worse, or if there's any requirements or?
Yeah, it's a good idea to work like this in of course, long-term projects, especially focusing on innovation. I think the environment is always changing. Maybe to give an example, I think last week was the new revision of the Alternative Fuels Infrastructure Directive regarding electric mobility, the European directive. If I'm a Belgian pilot and I'm planning something to do innovative with electric mobility, these kind of revisions of directives, it has of course not been foreseen in the proposal stage. So doing a value group like this and then doing this zooming out view when this update and really trying to get to know how it's going and what it's going, what is being delivered is very important. But from my point of view, the most important thing is what I said in the beginning. Templates are nice, but it's more important how you fill it in and how you get the support. So in this case, I think maybe Frank and Virág, you're a crucial part in the success of the value group. I think
the members are the crucial part because you keep the overview and bring in the knowledge, which nobody as a one single person has in the project. So yeah, you say that the templates, it's not the most important, and I agree. It's not trying not to be just another exercise, but more the way of thinking and to creating this view. So also last year you had the lot of the Belgian pilot for you, and I can show maybe for a moment what it looked like, just so that everybody has an idea.
Yeah.
And could you tell a bit about how it developed in the last year?
Yeah. What I, by the way, also liked about the template, I'm not sure if you're going to show it.
Yeah.
But especially in projects like this, there's often a lot of templates to fill in. So the fact that it's very concise and to the point is also a big plus in administratively burdened projects like this one. But so it was very much at the beginning of the project, and for the Belgian pilots, it was a bit of a special situation. So in the InterConnect project, we have 7 different countries with all pilot installations, but for Belgium, there are also 8 sub-pilots, and it's a different situation than the other countries, which meant that, for example, in the work package 1, when defining use cases, a lot of the processes were tailored to one pilot responsible for each country, and also one pilot person knowing a lot about all of the pilots. But in Belgium, of course, with 8 different locations, all managed by 8 different companies, it was a bit difficult. So that was my orange light here is the main reason for it. In the update now, so I think we soon have to give an update, but I already prepared it. So why did you indicate the color? I would also still pick the orange color for the Belgian pilots. Now, not anymore because the processes aren't aligned. I think I have a good contact with the different work package leaders, and pretty much everyone knows now Belgium is a bit of a special case. But I think, and it's not only for the Belgian pilot, but mostly likely for all the other pilots as well. We need to be a bit more alignment on the developments in the other work packages and the innovations being developed in the project, and the information of that going towards the pilots and how they can make use of it and how they can include it. And so what's going well is still, again, the communication in the Belgian sub-pilots is very good. We even have different Belgian sub-pilots helping each other out, finding technologies, finding installers, and what should be improved. And yes, what I explained already in the first question is, I think this information flow in the project can be a bit better. Especially from the different software developments and innovations being developed, and how the pilot can actually exploit this to the best. And any relevant external developments, I mentioned AFIT revision, but also there is one pilot who has a local partner that dropped out. Don't know if that was also part of the external developments, but that's also a bit of an issue.
Yeah, thanks for sharing all the observations. And then if we share this in the value group, it's you can really discuss about what how together we can solve them.
And I think indeed this discussion is a very valuable part the template is nice, but discussion about it and the guidance to it is crucial in my opinion.
That's the main point. I agree. Okay, and then in the meanwhile, we're almost through the time. So thanks so much, Arnor. And
yes, thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, so then we actually already reached the end of our webinar. So Frank in the beginning told you a bit about the decentral aspect of innovation and the Innovation Hub framework and the role of orchestrating innovation. We talked a bit with Maurits about digital innovation hubs and the challenges in Europe with connecting the different innovation hubs. And then I talked a bit about the value group, which is a way of implementing the orchestrating innovation thinking in the InterConnect project. And Arnor shared really the view as a member of the value group. So thanks for the speakers, but especially thank you all for joining and for your attention. I hope that you got some new information, that you maybe learned something. And if there's questions, then now is the time you can ask any of the speakers. So please go ahead if there's questions. And Frank, if you have any closing words, then please go ahead.
Thank you, Virág. No, I think you nicely summarized the program we had for today. So perhaps there are some questions. David, can you?
No, not right now from the Q&A. There's no specific question, but I can raise one as a closing question because we're just 2 minutes away from the slot, which is one of the points raised even in the poll, which is to have an impact on the innovation we produce. So that's something that was highlighted by the participants. So what advice would you give in terms of outreaching and have an impactful innovation dissemination? So what should the partners, not only in InterConnect, but also in other projects, look after just to make sure that this impact could be reached out to a higher level? Because this is something that most of the participants here identified.
Yeah, thank you, David. This is from my point of view, my 5 cents. So what we see in these projects, we come together, we create pilots, we do collaborative innovation, and after the project, which is still a substantial time for years, there will be a continued path. But then, some interoperable innovations will go their own pathways. So we're losing that coherence that we had in the project. That's one thing I'd like to give more continuity on. And the other thing is that same perspective, InterConnect project is just one phase in the whole development of a project. So we talk about exploitation plans, but we know there will be phases of extra innovation. So why not focus more on those upcoming phases? What is the actual concrete next step, and have you actually been able to secure the next step rather than a more generic explanation of exploitation, which is of course what we in the end want to, but will always be many steps in between a project like this and actual exploitation.
We have also Arnor, I believe, also willing to address this, so go ahead.
Yeah, if I'm allowed, because it's something we at TNT always are also always concerned about, and not specifically for InterConnect, although I do think it's applicable. But what we do see is that you really need to combine expertise from multi-disciplines. So you can have the best product, but if it doesn't, it's a sound business model, if it doesn't bring you money, the impact will be neglectable. If you have a good business plan, but you don't know your end user, impact will be neglectable. Even if you don't know the regulations, or don't know, especially innovative use cases, it's difficult to reach this impact. So from what we experience, and what I do think also can be a value for InterConnect, for example, the technical developments in the early work packages, combining to the more social expertise of the later work packages and work package 10, I think this is something very crucial. Frank, you want to comment on it?
Yeah, not so much on exactly what you said, Arnold, but What I also find intriguing is that, say, from a technological perspective, we increase steps alongside the technological readiness level. So we add complexity, we add more context to the development. However, we from the business model perspective, specifically from the impact perspective, you want to reason backwards from the high scale of diffused innovation, what is actually needed to get there. And then you would see probably more collaborations and speeding up of those innovations, and what can you actually organize for that. So from the looking backwards from this high level of impact, there will be other critical assumptions to be worked on as compared to from the technological development perspective. And we need to get better at identifying those critical assumptions.
Okay, so we're already past the hour, so my final words are to thank you all about this. I don't know, Frank, you have your hand raised. I don't know if you either raised or you wanted to unraise it. I think that's it. Okay, just to thank the speakers today. Thank you very much for this conversation. I think this is one of the first conversations about innovation that we need to keep on promoting. And hopefully by some sessions now, we'll be able to demonstrate even within the project and other projects how the innovation is reaching out to the field. So thank you again to the speakers today. Thank you very much for your availability for nice discussions. I hope that the audience enjoyed this, and just to let you know that we're hoping to see you in the next webinar. Until then, for those going to vacation, have a nice vacation and nice holidays. That's all. Thank you very much. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.